7 Aryan Brothers members held a nurse hostage. 4 hours later, 200 National Guards surrounded the place. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Medical Center hummed their usual monotonous tune as Sarah Mitchell completed her 3rd double shift that week. At 42, the veteran nurse had seen almost everything in her 18 years working the emergency ward in Bakersfield, California. Gang violence, overdoses, stabbings. The city's underbelly regularly found its way through those sliding glass doors. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold on that scorching August afternoon. Sarah was finishing her rounds in the recovery wing when she noticed them. 7 men, their tattooed arms a canvas of swastikas and runic symbols, moved through the hallway with purposeful strides that immediately set her instincts on fire. The leader, a towering figure with a shaved head and a spider-web tattoo creeping up his neck, locked eyes with her. His name was Derek Hoffman, and he was a high-ranking member of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most dangerous prison gangs in America. Before we continue, if you're watching this story unfold, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Now, let's get back to Sarah's nightmare. "Nobody moves, nobody dies," Derek announced, his voice cold and measured as he pulled a gun from beneath his jacket. The other 6 men fanned out, securing exits and herding the few staff members and visitors in the wing into the nurses' station. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs, but years of training kept her outwardly calm. She counted the hostages quickly. 11 people total, including herself. 2 other nurses, a doctor, 3 patients' family members, and 4 orderlies. "What do you want?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. Derek stepped closer, his boots echoing on the linoleum floor. "My brother's in surgery right now, critical condition. The cops put 6 bullets in him during a traffic stop this morning. If he dies, people in here start dying. Simple as that." Sarah's mind raced. She knew the surgery he was talking about. A gunshot victim had come in 3 hours earlier, heavily guarded by police. The man had been fleeing from a drug raid when officers opened fire. She hadn't realized he was connected to the AB. "I understand you're scared for your brother," Sarah said carefully, "but holding us hostage won't help him. The surgeons are doing everything they can." "Shut up," Derek snapped, pressing the barrel of his gun against her temple. "You talk when I tell you to talk. Otherwise you keep your mouth closed and do exactly what I say." The other gang members had already barricaded the doors with gurneys and medical equipment. One of them, a younger man with 1488 tattooed across his knuckles, was spray painting the windows black. Another was destroying security cameras with the butt of his rifle. They moved with military precision, suggesting this wasn't a spontaneous act, but something they'd planned, at least partially. Outside, chaos was erupting. The hospital's security had immediately alerted the Bakersfield Police Department when the armed men entered. Within 15 minutes, patrol cars surrounded the building, their sirens wailing. Officers established a perimeter, evacuating the lower floors and coordinating with hospital administration. The situation had escalated from a security concern to a full-blown hostage crisis in less than 20 minutes. Detective Marcus Cole arrived on scene within 30 minutes. A 20-year veteran with the Kern County Sheriff's Department, he dealt with his share of tense situations, but this was different. The Aryan Brotherhood wasn't your typical street gang. They were organized, disciplined, and absolutely ruthless. Their code demanded loyalty unto death, and they had a track record of following through on threats. Marcus established a command center in the hospital's administrative building, coordinating with FBI agents who were already en route from the Los Angeles field office. The situation was delicate. Any wrong move could result in multiple casualties. Inside the recovery wing, Sarah was trying to maintain order among the terrified hostages. A young mother clutching her infant was hyperventilating in the corner. One of the orderlies, a college student working his way through school, kept whispering prayers under his breath. The doctor, an elderly man named Dr. Peterson, had his hands raised and was visibly shaking. "Listen up," Derek addressed the hostages, his weapons sweeping across the room. "Here's how this works. You cooperate, you walk out of here alive. You try something stupid, you die. My brothers and we got nothing to lose. We're lifers in the system anyway. Adding a few more bodies to our count doesn't change anything for us." One of the gang members, a scarred man named Randy, grabbed Sarah roughly by the arm. You're going to be our voice to the outside. When they call, you tell them exactly what we say. Nothing more, nothing less. Got it?" Sarah nodded, her professional training kicking in even as fear threatened to overwhelm her. She knew that in hostage situations, establishing rapport with captors could be crucial for survival. "I'll cooperate, but I need you to let me check on the patients. Some of them need medication, and if we don't..." "I said shut up!" Randy backhanded her across the face, sending her stumbling backward. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth. "Easy," Derek said, pulling Randy back. "We need her able to talk." He turned to Sarah, his expression unreadable. "You can check on people, but my guys go with you. Any tricks, any signals to the outside, and someone dies. Clear?" "Clear," Sarah whispered, touching her split lip gingerly. Outside, the situation was intensifying. The FBI's hostage rescue team had arrived, along with SWAT units from 3 neighboring counties. News helicopters circled overhead, despite repeated warnings to maintain distance. The story was already breaking on national news. Armed gang members take hospital wing hostage in California. Marcus's phone rang. It was the hospital administrator. "The surgery just finished. The patient is stable but critical. He's being moved to ICU. "Don't move him anywhere," Marcus ordered. "Keep him in recovery. We need to manage this situation carefully." Inside, Derek's phone buzzed. He answered it, listening intently before his face darkened. "They're lying. My brother's still in surgery. They're stalling." "No," Sarah interjected carefully. "Surgeries can take hours, especially with multiple gunshot wounds. The team is probably still working on him." Derek grabbed her again, this time by the throat. "You better not be lying to me, nurse." Sarah gasped for air, clawing at his hand. "I can find out. Let me check." He released her, shoving her toward the phone. "Call the surgical unit. Find out what's really happening." With trembling hands, Sarah dialed the extension. The surgical nurse answered, and Sarah explained the situation as calmly as possible. The news was cautiously optimistic. The surgery had been successful, and the patient was being stabilized before transport to intensive care. "He's alive," Sarah relayed, her voice hoarse. "The surgery went well. He's stable." For a moment, relief flickered across Derek's face, but it quickly hardened again. "I want to see him. Now." "That's not possible," Dr. Peterson spoke up for the first time. "He needs to remain in recovery for at least another hour. Moving him prematurely could kill him." Derek pointed his gun at the doctor. "Then we wait, but every hour we wait, the price goes up. Tell the cops outside that for every hour my brother isn't brought to me, I execute 1 hostage." Sarah's blood ran cold. This was escalating faster than anyone could have anticipated. She grabbed the phone and dialed the number that had been calling repeatedly. Marcus answered immediately. "This is Sarah Mitchell. I'm one of the hostages. They want the patient brought to them within the hour, or they start killing people." Marcus's mind raced through options, none of them good. Moving a critical patient was dangerous, but so was letting this deadline pass. "Sarah, I need you to stay calm. We're working on a solution. Can you tell me how many hostages there are?" 11, including me. Are they all unharmed?" Sarah glanced at the young mother, who was now rocking her baby and crying quietly. "So far, yes. But they're serious about their threat. I believe you. Listen, we're going to do everything we can to resolve this safely. Keep people calm, and if you see any opportunity to provide us with information, take it carefully. Derek snatched the phone from her hand. You got 1 hour, cop. 1 hour or bodies start dropping, and we're not bluffing. The line went dead. Outside, Marcus immediately called for a meeting with all unit commanders. The situation had just become exponentially more dangerous. The Aryan Brotherhood's reputation for violence wasn't exaggerated. They had killed rivals, witnesses, and even fellow gang members who violated their code. They wouldn't hesitate to follow through on their threat. We need options, Marcus said, spreading blueprints of the hospital across a table. Can we breach? The SWAT commander shook his head. They've barricaded themselves well, and they have clear sightlines to all entry points. We'd lose hostages in any forced entry scenario. An FBI negotiator, Agent Jennifer Torres, stepped forward. We need to buy time. Let me talk to them. Establish a dialogue. If we can keep them talking, we delay their deadline. They're not your typical hostage takers, Marcus warned. These guys are prison-hardened. They've sat through lockdowns that lasted months. They know how this game is played. Which is why we need to offer them something real, Jennifer replied. What about the brother? Can we actually move him? The hospital's chief surgeon was brought into the discussion. He was adamant. Moving that patient right now could kill him. He needs at least 4 more hours of stabilization. Then we lie, someone suggested. No, Marcus said firmly. If they catch us lying, they'll execute someone immediately. We need a different approach. Agent Torres made a decision. Call the governor. We need authorization to mobilize the National Guard. If this goes south, we need overwhelming force ready to respond. Within 90 minutes, the California National Guard received deployment orders. 200 soldiers from the 40th Infantry Division began mobilizing from their base in Los Alamitos, 3 hours away. They brought armored vehicles, specialized equipment, and a level of firepower that dwarfed even the combined local law enforcement presence. Inside the hospital wing, tension was mounting as the deadline approached. Derek was pacing like a caged animal, his weapon never leaving his hand. The other gang members were equally on edge, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. Sarah had managed to distribute water to the hostages and check vital signs on those who needed it. The young mother's baby was crying, a sound that grated on everyone's nerves. One of the gang members, a man with AB tattooed on his neck, approached them menacingly. "Shut that kid up," he growled. "She's hungry," the mother sobbed. "Please, she needs to eat." Sarah intervened quickly. "There's formula in the supply closet. Let me get it." "Fine," Derek said. "Randy goes with you." As Sarah retrieved the formula, Randy stood close, his breath reeking of cigarettes. "You seem pretty calm for someone who might die today," he observed. "I've been a nurse for 18 years, Sarah replied quietly. "I've held people's hands while they took their last breath. I've seen miracles and tragedies. You learn not to panic." "That's some kind of philosophy?" "It's survival," Sarah said, meeting his eyes. "Just like what you're doing right now. We're all just trying to survive." Something flickered in Randy's expression. Doubt, maybe, or a moment of recognition that they were all human. But it passed quickly, replaced by the hard mask of a man who'd spent too many years behind bars. The phone rang again. Derek answered, his jaw tight. "Time's almost up, cop. What's it gonna be?" Marcus had made a decision, one he prayed wouldn't get anyone killed. "We're preparing to move your brother now, but it's going to take time to do it safely. We need another 2 hours. No deal. 1 hour or someone dies." "Listen to me," Marcus said, his voice urgent. "If we rush this and your brother dies because of it, you'll never forgive yourself. Give us 2 hours. In exchange, we'll send in food and medical supplies for the hostages." Derek was silent, calculating. Finally, he spoke. 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I want a TV brought in so I can watch the news coverage. I want to see that you're really preparing to move him." "Done," Marcus agreed. "We'll have supplies at the door in 15 minutes." The first deadline had been extended, but everyone knew it was a temporary reprieve. Outside, the National Guard convoy was racing north on Interstate 5, their arrival still over an hour away. As evening approached, the situation showed no signs of resolution. The hospital had been completely evacuated, except for the hostage wing, with over 300 patients relocated to nearby facilities. The street outside looked like a war zone, with armored vehicles, armed officers, and a growing crowd of onlookers and media personnel behind police barriers. Sarah used the brief lull to tend to the hostages more thoroughly. The young mother, whose name she learned was Christina, was barely holding it together. "I just wanted to visit my sister," Christina whispered. "She had her appendix removed this morning. Now I don't know if I'll ever see my baby grow up." "You will," Sarah said firmly, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. "We're all going to get through this." One of the orderlies, a young man named Kevin, pulled Sarah aside. "I saw something," he whispered. "That guy over there, the one with the scorpion tattoo. He keeps checking his phone. I think he's in contact with someone outside." Sarah's mind raced. If the gang had outside support, this could become even more complicated. She needed to find a way to relay this information to the police without getting caught. The TV that Marcus had sent in was now broadcasting live coverage of the standoff. Derek watched intently, his expression unreadable as reporters speculated about his brother's condition and the gang's demands. "Look at that," one of the gang members, a man named Jake, said bitterly. "They're making us out to be monsters." "We are monsters," Derek replied without emotion, "at least to them. But my brother's blood, and blood is everything." As the second deadline approached, the National Guard arrived. 200 soldiers in full tactical gear began taking positions around the hospital, establishing multiple layers of security. They brought with them riot shields, tear gas, flashbang grenades, and enough firepower to end the standoff decisively, if it came to that. Marcus watched the deployment with mixed feelings. The overwhelming show of force might intimidate the hostage-takers into surrendering, or it might provoke them into doing something desperate. Agent Torres tried calling again, but Derek didn't answer. Inside, the gang members were becoming increasingly agitated as they watched the military presence build outside their windows. "They're going to storm us," Randy said, his voice tight with tension. "Let them try," Derek replied. "We've got 11 shields in here. They rush us. Everyone dies." Sarah overheard this exchange and felt her stomach drop. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. She made a decision that could either save lives or cost her own. She approached Derek directly. "I need to speak with you," she said, "privately." Derek studied her for a long moment before nodding to one of his men to watch the hostages. He led Sarah to a corner of the room, his gun still trained on her. "Talk." "Your brother is stable now," Sarah said carefully. "I checked with ICU 20 minutes ago. His vitals are strong, and the doctors are optimistic about his recovery. You're winning. But if this ends in violence, he loses his brother, and you've accomplished nothing." "You think I don't know that?" Derek's voice was harsh, but Sarah detected something underneath. Fear, maybe, or exhaustion. "You think I want to be here, holding a gun on innocent people. But this is who we are, this is what we do. We don't back down ever." "There's a difference between not backing down and committing suicide," Sarah pressed, "because that's what this is becoming. There are 200 soldiers out there now. You can't win this fight." "Winning isn't the point." "Then what is?" Derek was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Respect. In our world, respect is everything. If we back down now, we're weak, and weak men don't survive in prison. Sarah understood then. This wasn't really about his brother's safety. It was about the code, the reputation, the image that the Aryan Brotherhood had cultivated over decades. To surrender peacefully would be seen as weakness, something their organization couldn't tolerate. But she also saw something else in Derek's eyes, a flicker of humanity buried deep beneath years of violence and hate. He was trapped, just as much as the hostages were, by circumstances and choices that had led him to this moment. "Let the women and children go," Sarah said quietly. "Keep me and the men if you need hostages, but let Christina and her baby go. Please." Derek looked over at the young mother, who was rocking her infant gently, tears streaming down her face. For a moment Sarah thought she'd gotten through to him, but then his expression hardened again. "No, everyone stays. Those are my orders." The second deadline arrived with no resolution. Marcus made one more call, and this time Derek answered immediately. "We're ready to move your brother," Marcus said. "But I need something from you first. Release the women and children. Show good faith, and we'll start the transfer process." Derek looked at his fellow gang members who were watching him intently. He knew what he had to do, what the code demanded, but he also knew that every minute this continued, the likelihood of everyone dying increased. "I'll release the woman with the baby," Derek said finally, "but that's it. One gesture of good faith for another. You bring my brother to the ground floor, secure but visible. Then we talk about the rest." "That's acceptable," Marcus agreed, relief flooding through him. "Send her out the main entrance in 5 minutes." Derek nodded to Sarah. "Get the mother and baby. They're leaving." Christina could barely believe it when Sarah told her. She clutched her infant close, sobbing with relief and guilt. "But the others—" "Go," Sarah urged. "Get your baby to safety. That's what matters right now." Derek personally escorted them to the door, removing one of the barricades. "Walk straight to the police line," he instructed. "Don't run, don't look back, just walk." Christina did exactly that, her baby clutched to her chest as she walked through the surreal landscape of armed officers and military vehicles. The moment she crossed the police line, officers rushed forward to escort her to safety. The image of her walking out, silhouetted against the flashing lights, would become the defining photograph of the standoff. Inside, the mood had shifted slightly. The release of one hostage suggested that Derek might be willing to negotiate more seriously. But the remaining 10 hostages knew they weren't out of danger yet. Marcus immediately ordered the patient to be moved to a ground-floor examination room with a window facing the parking lot. It took 30 minutes to carefully transport him, with medical staff maintaining constant monitoring. Once in position, Marcus called Derek again. "He's on the ground floor, room 108. You can see him through the window if you come down to the second-floor landing." Derek delegated 2 of his men to verify. They returned 5 minutes later, confirming that the brother was indeed visible, hooked up to various monitors and breathing tubes, but alive. "Okay," Derek said, a note of genuine relief in his voice. "Now we negotiate how this ends." Over the next hour, Agent Torres took over the negotiations. She was trained in the psychology of hostage situations, understanding that Derek needed a way to surrender that wouldn't make him look weak to his organization. "Here's what I'm proposing," she said over the phone. "You release the remaining hostages, except for one. You keep one male hostage as insurance, while we arrange safe transport for you and your men to the county jail. Once there, you'll be kept in protective custody, separated from general population. Your brother will be transferred to the prison hospital once he's stable enough to move." "And the charges?" "I can't negotiate that," Torres admitted. "But I can tell you that no one's been hurt yet, and that will work in your favor. The district attorney will take that into consideration. Derek conferred with his men in hushed tones. The debate was intense, with some arguing for a fight to the death, while others saw the wisdom in accepting the deal. Finally, Derek returned to the phone. "We release 9 hostages. We keep the nurse, Sarah. She's proven she can keep her head, and she can monitor my brother's condition while we finalize transport arrangements." Sarah's heart sank when she heard her name, but she also understood Derek's reasoning. He trusted her as much as someone like him could trust anyone outside his organization. "That's acceptable," Torres agreed. "Release the 9 hostages and we'll begin arranging transport." Over the next 30 minutes, the hostages were released one by one, each walking out to thunderous relief from the gathered crowd. Television cameras captured every moment as Dr. Peterson, Kevin the orderly, and the others stumbled into the arms of waiting officers. When it was done, only Sarah remained inside with the 7 gang members. The hospital wing felt even more oppressive now, emptier and more dangerous, with just her and 7 armed men who had nothing left to lose. "You okay?" Randy asked her, surprisingly gently. "I'm fine," Sarah lied. "What happens now?" "Now we wait for transport," Derek said. "But if this is a trick, if they're planning to storm us, you die first. Understand?" "I understand." Outside, the tactical teams were positioned and ready. Marcus had given orders that if the situation deteriorated, they would breach immediately. The National Guard had snipers positioned on rooftops with clear lines of sight into the wing. Every moment was documented, analyzed, and prepared for. 2 hours later, an armored transport vehicle arrived. Derek watched through the window as officers in full riot gear established a corridor from the hospital entrance to the vehicle. "Time to go," Derek announced. "Sarah, you're coming with us until we're secured in custody. Then you're free." They moved as a unit, Sarah in the center surrounded by the 7 gang members. The walk through the empty hospital felt surreal, their footsteps echoing off walls that just hours before had been filled with staff and patients. As they emerged into the parking lot, the sight was overwhelming. Hundreds of weapons pointed at them, spotlights illuminating every inch, and the armored transport waiting with its rear doors open. "Everyone stay calm," Marcus's voice came through a loudspeaker. "Board the vehicle slowly. Ms. Mitchell, you'll be released as soon as they're secured." The gang members boarded one by one, their hands raised to show they were complying. Sarah was the last to enter, her legs shaking so badly she could barely climb the steps. Inside the armored vehicle, officers in riot gear waited. As soon as all 7 gang members were seated, they were restrained with flex cuffs and searched for weapons. Sarah was gently helped out through the front cabin, where Marcus himself was waiting. "You're safe now," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did. Incredible." Sarah couldn't respond. The adrenaline that had kept her functioning for the past 4 hours suddenly drained away, and she collapsed against him, sobbing. The armored vehicle transported the 7 Aryan Brotherhood members to the Kern County Jail, where they were processed and placed in isolation cells. Derek's brother, after another week in the hospital, was eventually transferred to the prison medical facility, where he made a full recovery. The standoff became a case study in hostage negotiation, analyzed by law enforcement agencies across the country. The decision to mobilize the National Guard was debated. Some argued it escalated the situation, while others believed the overwhelming show of force convinced the gang members that resistance was futile. For Sarah, life slowly returned to normal, though she carried the trauma of those 4 hours with her. She took a month of leave, attended therapy sessions, and eventually returned to work at St. Mary's. She'd been offered positions at other hospitals, places where she wouldn't be reminded daily of what happened, but she chose to stay. "I can't let fear win," she told a reporter who interviewed her months later. "This is where I belong, helping people. That doesn't change because of one terrible day." The 7 gang members were eventually convicted on multiple charges, including kidnapping, false imprisonment, and weapons violations. They received sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years to be served in high-security federal prisons. Derek's brother, after his recovery, was sentenced to 20 years for the drug charges and resisting arrest that had triggered the entire incident. In the aftermath, the hospital implemented new security protocols, including metal detectors, armed guards, and panic buttons in every unit. The recovery wing where the standoff occurred was renovated completely, the blood-spattered walls and bullet holes erased, though the memory remained etched in everyone who had been there. Christina, the young mother whose release became the turning point of the negotiations, wrote Sarah a letter 6 months later. In it, she thanked her for her courage and for pushing Derek to let her and her baby go. She enclosed a photo of her daughter, smiling and healthy, a reminder that sometimes in the darkest moments, small victories matter most. The National Guard troops who had responded that day received commendations for their rapid deployment and professionalism. While they never had to fire a shot, their presence had been crucial in demonstrating that the authorities were prepared for any outcome. For Detective Marcus Cole, it was the most stressful case of his career, but also one of his proudest moments. No hostages had died, and the situation had been resolved without a violent assault. In law enforcement, that was the best possible outcome. As time passed, the scars faded but never fully disappeared. Sarah would sometimes pause in the hallway where Derek had first pressed his gun to her temple, remembering the cold metal and the fear that had threatened to overwhelm her. But she would also remember the moment when she'd seen humanity in his eyes, the flicker of conscience that had led him to release Christina and her baby. Years later, she received a letter from Derek, written from his federal prison cell. In it, he didn't apologize for the hostage-taking. His code wouldn't allow that. But he acknowledged her courage and thanked her for treating him like a human being during those terrible hours. He mentioned that his brother had joined a prison education program and was studying to get his GED, a small step toward redemption. Sarah never wrote back. Some wounds run too deep for forgiveness, and some actions can't be reconciled with kind words written from a prison cell, but she kept the letter, a reminder that even in the darkest circumstances, even among people capable of terrible violence, there remain fragments of humanity waiting to be recognized. The standoff on that August afternoon in Bakersfield became more than just a news story. It became a testament to the complexity of human nature, the courage of ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances, and the fine line that separates life from death in moments of crisis. For everyone involved, the hostages, the gang members, the law enforcement officers, and the National Guard soldiers, it was a day that would forever define a part of who they were. And in the end, despite all the fear, violence, and tension, everyone had survived. In a situation that could have ended in bloodshed and tragedy, somehow, against the odds, life had prevailed.